So I'm over here in Blackboard, and I'm going to click on the link for add for the text that I need for this practice. Opens up for me in another tab, and I'm going to just do Control A to select everything. You could also click and drag, Control C to copy it. I'm going to come over to Dreamweaver. Oh, I'm going to close that out. So I'm going to come over to Dreamweaver, and I'm going to go to File, New, and I want a blank page. HTML is the type, layout is none, and doc type is HTML5. I'm going to hit Create. I'm going to delete the code that's already there, and I'm going to paste it in, the code that I had selected. Click over into here, and now I can see everything. And the only thing I want to point out is that my image is not visible, or it's a broken link, is this little icon, meaning it's not there. And so look over here into the image code, and I'd like you to try to figure out why is this not showing up. Sorry, not into the image code. Look over here into the HTML, where I have the tag for images and the source, and let me know if you can figure out why that's not showing up. So what we're talking about in this video is how to start marking up our code with the div tag. So I'm going to look for the beginning of my body tag, and I'm going to go right after that, and I'm going to put in the container div, and that's going to wrap around all of the content that I have in my body. So I'm starting right after my opening body tag. I'm going to type in div with an ID that's going to equal, and now in quotes, container, end the quote, and then put my greater than sign. I'm going to come all the way down to the end here, so right above my closing body tag, and I'll put in my closing div tag, and Dreamweaver automatically fills that in for me as soon as I start typing it. Okay, so I click over here, and I don't see anything different other than I now have, I just am in design view, kind of this little dotted trace outline all around. And if I click on that, I now see in my tag selector down here saying, hey, you have a div with an ID of container. And notice that the syntax for ID is the hashtag. We'll see that over and over again. Okay, so, but nothing has changed. So the next is, I guess actually just to demonstrate, well, what we could do is I'll go ahead and let's write a rule for that ID of container, and we'll add some attributes to it. So I'm going to put that right up at the top here. I'm going to come down a line. So I'm now in my head tag, so I'm working with CSS. And if I want to target an ID, it's a little bit different from targeting HTML. This is all HTML. I need to start it with the hashtag and make sure that I have the correct spelling. But Dreamweaver already gives me a list of all of my IDs, so I could also just use this container, space, open curly bracket, and I'm going to come down a line and put my closing curly bracket. And notice until I put my closing curly bracket, I've kind of X'd out my following the code that I had below. And as soon as I put that, now this goes back to having to being a CSS style, and it goes back to being pink. The color coding is just something that Dreamweaver does. It doesn't really control anything. So I'm going to just give it something simple like a background color, so we can see how this works. Background color, colon, and I'll pick a color, something just a little bit different from what I already have there. Oh, I guess I was in RGB mode, that's fine. And now let's go back over to the split mode. And so now you can see, switch all the way over here to design, the difference between my background and everything that is inside of my container. Let's actually just go and view this on a web page. Oh, it wants me to save it. I thought I already saved it. Okay, maybe I didn't save it. So I'm going to save this. I'll save it. Actually, call it layout practice.html. That would have been a good first step. And now I'll take a look at it. Okay, so now you can see that there's a little bit of a different color around everything that is in my container. Why doesn't my container go all the way to the edge? Because I added a margin to my body tag. And so that's the result of the margin. I'll switch back over here. And go back over into the code view, and let's continue marking up the page. So now I want to make the region for my header. So right after the start of my container tag, I'm going to come down and I'm going to put in another div with an ID that's going to equal header. And I want to wrap that around. If I'm looking over in my design view, I'm going to make everything in my header that goes until the end of this HR. So let's go back over here and look for that, and it's right here. I'm going to come down a line and close out that div. And if I go back over to my design view, I can see that I now have those little dotted lines. I now have another region as well. If I look at my tags here, I now have another region with an ID of header. So I have my container. If I click on that, I get the blue line sort of outlining my everything. If I click just on header, it outlines, it shows me that this region that I've marked up as a header. And now if I scroll up to here, I'm going to make a new rule. I'll go right after my container one. And we'll do this again. So because this is an ID, it starts with a hashtag. And I'll put in header, open curly bracket, and come down, and we'll just stick with this idea of doing the different background colors. So we can, this is not good design principle, it's just to sort of illustrate background color, and I'll pick a different color and close this out with a closing curly bracket. And now let's click over here, and now let's I'll save it, Control S, and go up here, preview, so we can see that my container has one color, my header has another color, and my background has another color. And let's go back over to Dreamweaver here, and let's add a padding to my header. So let's go back up to that header, and I'm going to add now padding to the left of 50 px, and click over to here. And so now I'll save it again and preview it so we can get a bigger window. So now you can see my body has a margin added onto it. So there's no way my container could ever go all the way to the edge because it's buffered by that margin. And now I have my header, and inside of my header I have added a padding so that the text, or even if I had an image, whatever is inside the header will never go to the edge of my header because of that padding that I've added. Okay, so let's continue on. And now we're going to find the end of that last div. So this is the end of my header div. And now I'm going to add the one I'm going to call main. So again, so a div with an ID that equals main. And what do I want to wrap in that? I'm going to actually wrap just about everything. If I look over into here, I'll end at makes 60, and then we'll make this the footer, makes 60. So let's look for that. Makes 60. So after my paragraph tags, I want that all to be included. I'm going to close that div out. And now if I click over into here, I can see I have now the third region. So I have my container, and I have my main as well, and my headers in there. So let's do something a little bit different with this one. Remember, these are all just kind of for the sake of examples. I don't really recommend doing all these different colors, backgrounds for every region, it's just for example. So now I'm going to type in main, and we'll give it a different background color as well, just so we can really see it standing out. Choose a color, maybe actually I'll give this one white. And I'm just going to go ahead and close out my rule, even though I'm going to add more things. And I'm going to show you in the next video how to do all of this also through some of the Dreamweaver panels, but I always like for you to start out doing this in the code so you really understand what's going on. I'm going to add a margin left at auto. I'm going to put it at auto, and a margin right also at auto. And then I'm going to control the width of this region. So notice I haven't put in anything yet about width, and that's something that we'll definitely want to do. That's one of the advantages of doing this. I'm going to put the width at, sort of making up a number here, I don't know how this will actually work, 400 px. And so let's click over here, and I'm going to save it. So now this is what I have. I have this region here that's in the middle. How did I get it into the middle? Well, the way you center things through CSS is you put the margin left and margin right to auto. So it automatically spaces them out evenly. And I controlled the width of this region, so everything else I haven't put in the width, so it's just going the full width of my entire window. But this time I put in a width. Now this is something that I would definitely not like if I saw this on a web page, is that my text goes all the way to the edge. So we're going to go back and correct that. Go to that rule, and we're going to add some padding. And so I'm going to go back here and add padding. And if I just choose padding instead of padding bottom, left, right, top, it's going to add whatever number I put in to all of those sides. So I'll just choose padding, and let's put in a padding of 15px. And click over here. And we can see that now it's added space between the edge of my text and the edge of the region main. And just to see it in the browser. And so that looks a lot better. So I have some space up at the top. And most importantly, my text doesn't go all the way to the edge. I think I would probably actually have even more space, a little bit more space. Okay, and then last, let's just add the footer. So I have to find the end of this div. So it starts here, and I ended it here. I'm going to come down a line. I don't have to come down a line, by the way. It would work if I didn't. I just like to keep it a little more organized. And I'm going to have that div with an ID that equals, I'm going to call this one footer. And let's wrap it around everything here. It's really important that I'm going to just put it here, that I have it going before this closing div and before my closing body tag. I close it out here, and I click over, and I can just see those little dotted lines, but it doesn't look different until I write the rule for it. And I know this video is getting a little long, so let's just quickly end this up. So start in my footer, and let's just do something. I'll close that tag out and go in the middle, and I'll just give it another background. Oops. Background color. It's going to equal. Oh. If you lose that, you can go back to the code hint tools by right-clicking color picker and pick a different hue here. These colors are kind of horrible, so I'm just randomly picking colors. And we'll click back over here, and now we can see the same thing, that we have a different background color. And I'm going to add some padding so that my text doesn't go right up to the edge. Padding of 20px, it's kind of a standard amount. Click over to here, and we can see that now the text is going to be buffered a little bit from the edge of its region. Okay, I'm going to actually end right here, and I'm going to continue with the margins for the next video. And we're going to build what's called, I call the blog style layout.